Hello and welcome to Politically Incorrect Knitters. My name is Ann Pinkava, joined as always by the lovely Deplorable Knitter.
Hey guys, thanks for joining us today.
We have an extra special guest this week, but before we get to her, we like to talk about Chicken Lady Fiber Arts, who is our sponsor. You can go to chickenladyfiberarts.com and get 20% off with our code PREEMIE20 PIK, and that is PREEMIE PREEMIE. And you can get beautiful yarns from her. She has some upcoming Christmas colorways that you can see when you sign up for her newsletter and on her website. And also, she has yarns such as these that we have for our giveaways. The winner of last month's giveaway, which is marvelous, which is on Chicken Lady's Wyandotte base, which is 80% merino, 10% cashmere, 10 nylon, and absolutely beautiful. The winner is Wendy Nope 1252. So go ahead and email me, Wendy, and we'll get this out to you. And this upcoming month's yarn is on the same base, and this is the wheat colorway. So it is beautiful and golden, and I think would be really lovely for color work. It's super soft.
It is very lovely. And make sure you comment on this video to be entered to win. And also, Claudia Kyle, you won our September, the ornament kit giveaway. Email us so that we can get that out to you as well. We got lots of prizes to give away, so just contact us so we can get them to you.
It is the giving season or something.
We are joined this week by Janessa from Euphoria Knits. Thanks for coming on today. Janessa was going to come to our trunk show over the weekend, but it didn't work out, so we decided to just have a little one-on-one with her. Can you tell our viewers a little bit about yourself, like when you started dyeing, what you're, what's up with you? Tell us a little bit about you.
So, I've always been pretty artsy in general. I learned how to crochet when I was a kid, and I suck at it. Like, I am awful at crochet. And I've always wanted to learn to knit. So I tried I don't know how many times people tried to teach me, and it just never stuck. And then finally, when I was pregnant with my third child, I was like, I'm gonna learn. It's winter. I have nothing else better to do. So I got on the YouTube and I dug out my stuff, and I messed up a lot, but I got really into knitting. And then we ended up moving to San Antonio, Texas, shortly thereafter. And I went from like having 2 jobs to having like no job, and it was just one income in our house. And I was like, man, I'm getting to that point where I want to start using nicer yarns. And I was learning about indie dyed yarn, and I was like, man, this stuff is expensive, but I want to touch it. So I was like, well, how hard could it be to make it myself? Because, why not? And I did a lot of research, and I played around with a lot of stuff, and I had a lot of fun dyeing with, food coloring and random stuff I had around the house. And my husband has a degree in business management, and I like, hey, here's some numbers. Would this work? Sorry, can you tell I've been dyeing yarn?
Before you got on with us, not to interrupt your story, but Janessa's standing there and she's in her dye studio right now, and she has these like lovely skeins of purple yarn, and they're white, and she's holding them. She's just dipping them in, bringing them back out, shuffling them around. It's just beautiful. And she's like, oh, hi. Like, oh, I'll just stop talking. I'll just stop dying for a moment and talk to you. That'll be fine. Just like in the wild dying experience. Sorry.
And I also, before you continue, I have to say that I love the fact that you said, oh, hey, how hard can this be? Because I think every crafter has picked up something at some point in time and been like, I can do this. And so
For sure.
That's me too. Yeah.
We've
all done
what
that.
Makes us crafters, right? We're all like, oh, you see something on, well, now we have Pinterest, but it was like one of my first jobs in high school was I helped open a Michael's craft store in a mall that was being built near my house. And I could probably guarantee that 75% of my paycheck went right back into the store. But the whole point I wanted to start learning to knit was because I really wanted fingerless gloves, right? And I bought this book and everything, and I still have it, and I've yet to make gloves. I've been knitting and dyeing yarn. I've been knitting for almost a decade, and I still haven't made gloves. Literally everything else but gloves.
So do you want to make the gloves with like the actual fingertips in it? Or are you talking about like the mitts where there's no holes?
No, where it's like fingers, but then they just cut off. So like the tips of the fingers are missing. Fingerless. I guess they technically have fingers, they just the tips are gone. And then usually they have like a little mitten thing that goes over it. But I don't know why I thought that was, it was cool to have fingerless gloves.
So you were talking to your husband about the numbers.
Oh, yeah. So, and he was like, yeah, you could actually totally do this. So I got like $500 and I started my little business, and it's just kind of grown on itself over the last, gosh, what is it, 5 or 6 years now? So, yeah, I like dyeing yarn. I enjoy it's like art and science kind of combined, which are my two favoriteest things. So it's fun that you can dye the same dye pan. You can have different fibers in it, and no two will look the same. Like alpaca takes the dye differently than merino, than BFL, than yak or silk or whatever. So it's a lot of fun. It's an interesting. I like to play with color a lot. So a lot of my solid colorways are combinations of colors that I create my own new colors with. I want to have something different because I know a lot of us are there's not a lot of the dye manufacturers out there. So we all use the same dyes. But I think any dyer can do a solid color of whatever stock dye there is. But I want to be able to play around and have different options than the standard that anybody can do.
No, that's really cool. And I love the fact that all of you guys have the same similar, you have yarn and you have dyes and stuff. And I was talking about this, I don't know, on the trunk show or something, but you can get a skein of yarn, and what I make with it is not going to be what Anne makes with it, is not going to be what you make with it. And it's kind of the same thing with dyeing. Like, it's so cool to see like your interpretation of what you have is totally different than like Chicken Ladies or any of our other dyer friends, and that's like what makes it so awesome.
Yeah, and my husband actually brought that up too. He was like, well, isn't there a lot of indie dyers? I was like, yeah. And I've had a couple other people who were interested in it. And I know some people are very stingy, I guess, with what their dye stuff is or how they're secretive. And I don't care. I'll answer anybody's questions because at the end of the day, like, it's not a competition to me because, like you said, everybody's is different. You're going to put different colors together. You're going to speckle. I don't even know how many different kinds of ways you can speckle, or you can make solids or semi-solids. You can mix colors. There's endless options. And someone's personality is going to come out in their yarn too. So you never know. It's all different. And I don't consider it a competition because we all have different artistic style and ideas. And sometimes you'll get yarns that are similar, but they're never quite the same.
Yeah. That's for true. And for real. Not for true. But like, I don't know if you remember when Hobby Lobby came out with their like hand dyed yarns, and there were a couple of shops that were like yelling at them like, oh, you copied my colorways. I could see the similarities, but I've done the kitchen dyeing myself, and I had also made those colorways. So it's kind of like, I don't know, like, yeah, you don't want a big chain store taking your like what you feel is yours and making it, but also it's normal. It's normal, and it shouldn't be a competition, because if people love your stuff, they're going to come and they're going to get it.
It could be on a different base. It could be there's so many like different variations of how to do stuff. There's such a variety out there that, yeah, I don't think of it as a competition. I know some people do, but that's your life. You do what you want. I'm just here making pretty stuff. I don't care.
That's cool. So you started doing this in Texas, and now you have moved back to Colorado, and you're still doing it. You've got your lovely little dye shed there.
I'm borrowing a portion of my dad's shed. So since it's winter, his projects have decreased. So I've stolen half of the shed to dye with. And then the only part that I'm not looking forward to is there's no hot water to the shed. So winter dyeing is going to be very cold. But I've got like a little electric kettle that I just keep making hot water in and adding it to stuff. And then when my fingers get too cold, I just like warm up some water and I put my hands in it for a couple minutes and I'm like, all right, we're good. I'll survive. I walked in the house and I was joking with my mom and I was like, look, because my hands are always different colors. And I was like, my hands are so cold, they turned blue. And she freaked out for a second and she's like, aha.
It's funny. Yeah, that seems like it would be difficult, but you've got an electric kettle, and then can you use those the fires that they use for keeping buffets warm?
Oh, like
a
little
stupid idea.
Sterno cans, the gel stuff that you could set on fire. I mean, it's a little archaic, but maybe.
I don't know.
I'll just build a
just
fireplace in the corner of my dad's shed. We'll just get a bunch of bricks and we'll build a fireplace. And I'll just have like one of those big, like witch kettles that will just sit in there and just scoop, I'll ladle out hot water.
What's Janessa doing? She's over there with her giant kettle, stirring around her yarn.
It's called kettle dye, all right? It's very special. Can I market that? Is that
yeah, real kettle dyed yarn.
Extra for kettle dyed yarn? No. I've gotten a little more sophisticated. I've got these fun little food cooker warmer doohickeys. I have 4 of them, but I only have enough electricity to run 2 at a time. So it's been fun.
So it sounds like it's been an adjustment since you've come back and you're using the shed. But
yes, but I'll make it work.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
The goal is we're actually trying to buy land, and I would like to build a studio basically that I could have as my yarn dye space / office. So that's the goal.
That would be cool. I mean, I think every crafter wants, I don't necessarily need a studio, but I want one of those stupid she sheds they used to have in the TV commercials. I totally want one of those for my yarn. And everybody's on my nerves. Mommy's going in her shed. I need an hour. Like, let me just shut these doors.
Right. And then you need to have a little camera on the outside with a thing inside so you can see who's coming before you can lock the door real quick. Yeah. Mommy's in timeout. So I'm in timeout. You can't talk to me right now. I'm in trouble. I put myself in here. Go away.
Well, that sounds very cool. If you were to get your own dye studio, that would be lots of fun.
Yeah, that's the goal. I started doing a monthly club this year, which has also been with moving has been a crazy challenge. I feel bad because there's been a couple months where it got delayed because of various things. But yeah, so yesterday I was dyeing the club colorway for November, and I have a girl in San Antonio who makes like the little polymer clay. She makes me custom stitch markers for every month. I do a sticker, like I custom make little stickers for each month, and then it comes with the yarn and then some other extra goodie. So I ordered little stitch stoppers or needle stoppers for this month. Hopefully they get here sooner than later, but yeah, I love USPS so much.
It was actually your yarn club was the first time that I had seen your stuff. I don't know why that sort of taught the Instagram algorithm tossed you my way.
Not complaining.
But it was the Earl Grey set that you did.
That was like my most popular one so far, and I've had people ask me if I'll make it again, and I think I might because it was pretty awesome. My favorite one so far.
It is just stunning. And sorry, I looked this up for the trunk show, but of course you would know that you have 3 different tiers for your monthly yarn.
Yeah, so there's the minis, which is just whatever the monthly club colorway is, and 4 coordinating minis. So you have 5 mini skeins, and then there is just a single skein of sock yarn, and then there's the extra, which is 1 full skein plus the 4 coordinating minis, and then of course all the goodies that come along with it. And
Yep.
I also made it so I try to do. Sorry, go ahead. I try to do spoilers every month. And you don't have to subscribe. You can go on and just order that month if that's what you want.
So those are the 20-gram minis, right?
Yes, they are 20-gram fingering weight minis, and Frenzy is my sock yarn base, and it is 85% wool and 15% nylon, and I have some hanging out in here. So I love it because it's a lot softer than a lot of sock yarns are, 75-25, and I just prefer this. It's just a higher wool content, but with enough nylon that you can still use it for socks and everything else. So this is my go-to for literally everything. I'm not a sock knitter. I have made socks, but I'm not a sock knitter.
What colorway is that?
So this one is called Mountain Flowers. I don't know. I'm just a huge nerd too, by the way. I name everything after random whatever. So I don't know if you're a Skyrim fan, but there's in the land of Skyrim, there is these beautiful little flowers everywhere. And so there's like purple mountain flowers and white mountain flowers and blue and whatever. But anyway, so it's speckled with a pink, a green, a dark blue, and an orange. I don't know how well you can kind of see. But this is a newer colorway. It's I think I dyed it maybe 4 or 5 months ago. And then let's see, what else did I bring out here? Like a box of goodies over here.
Ooh,
Another
nice.
new colorway that I just dyed for a show I had 2 weeks ago, and it's called High Hrothgar, and it's this really pretty like grayish purple kind of tonal, and then I speckled it with a dark red and blue and some green, and I'm like, this is my new favorite. I think I'm gonna have to. I don't know what I'm gonna make with it, but I'm gonna steal at least one skein for myself. That's like the biggest problem as a dyer is you make something and then you're like, I have to sell it. I can't just keep it all for myself. Um, but I'm not gonna lie, I've definitely like stolen my favorite skeins to stash away. But
I think that you would have to, if you're a yarn dyer, you would have to have a stock of your own yarn, and because I'm sure you get one-offs too that you're like, this is too pretty to go in my store. I'm just gonna put that away. Like,
but there's also times like I have a colorway I made and I hate it. I think it's the ugliest thing ever. Absolutely abhor this colorway. In my local yarn shop in San Antonio, the owners, I love them to death. Kelly, she was like, "Oh, I love this. You should, make it for." I was like, "Kelly, I hate it. It's hideous. It's disgusting." She was like, "No, no, I love it." She bought it for what I had dyed, and she sold it, and she was like, "You have to make me more." And I was like, "Why are you making me make more of this disgusting thing?" So I made her more, and I said, I'm not gonna dye this for anybody but you because I hate this so much.
Do you
And
have
then
ugly yarn? I'm very curious now.
yeah, I want to know what it looks
I
like
don't
too.
I don't have any because I don't keep it. I only make it for her. But
Like, yeah, my son.
but it was funny because someone was like, "Oh, hey, someone went into the shop and they have like a podcast or whatever on YouTube. Here's the link. They had your yarn. They talked about it." And of course, I went and I was like, "Oh, cool." And I went and watched it and it was that ugly. And I was like, "Oh, I hate this yarn so much. I hate it."
And
And I
isn't that
can't
the way
escape it.
too?
So
Like, I've designed patterns, and like the ones that people want me to knit and send them are ones that I like hate making, and those are the ones that everybody orders, and I'm like, all right, I'll make it again. Like,
I've
begrudgingly,
I've fallen into that too, where I used to make hats and knit, not so much anymore. But it's that same kind of thing that you never know which patterns are going to go nuts, or what projects are going to go nuts. And you make something, you're like, yeah, it's okay. and everybody wants that one. And you make something like, this is incredible. And they're like,
no. I did that too. So I have 4 published patterns so far. I have a few others in the works. But one of them was just like a super lame like baby blanket, and I didn't even use my own yarn. I just used Malabrigo Rios because I had a ton of it and it's cheap. And it went nuts, and I've sold like 200 copies. And then I went to all this hard work to make this really cute like color work towel, and I sold like 2.
That's the way it is, though. You put your blood, sweat, and tears into something, and people are like, "Oh no, I like that one that you just randomly like threw together and didn't like even test in it." But yeah, that's the one. And I'm like, okay. I
Right?
think it happens to all of us.
Exactly. But I am a color work fanatic. I love color work so much. And I have a whole notebook full of ideas. I get too excited to like knit other people's projects because I see patterns. I'm like, ooh. I also do a lot of test knitting. So the majority of my samples that I have in my booth and stuff are test knits that I made with my yarn. Then it's a win-win, right?
That's cool. I'm actually super excited. I just got accepted to test knit for a designer. And usually people don't let me because my name doesn't always make people like them. And so I'm like super stoked. I actually forgot I have to get going. Oops.
Nice.
But
Oh my
that's
gosh.
okay.
Okay, so random little story. I'm so lame. So I have tested 2 sweaters for Max the Knitter. I'm sure you've heard of him. So I did his Once in
Yep.
Floral sweater years ago, and it took me like 2 months because he was like, "Hey, I have too many people who signed up for this particular size. Would you mind making like a double XL?" And of course, I was like, "Hell yeah!" Oh my God, bad idea. So this sweater is huge, but it's my most favorite thing in the world. And I never thought I'd ever actually see him in real life because he's, in Canada, and usually the only shows he goes to are like Vogue and Stitches and whatever Rhinebeck up there, which I don't live up there, and I have 4 kids. I don't have money, so I'm not gonna go. But I had my first show this year as the DFW Fiber Festival, and it's the biggest show I've ever done. So it was a big deal. And someone came over to my booth and they were like, "Hey, Max is here." And I was like, "You've got to be kidding." They're like, "No, Max and Dells are over there in that booth." And I was like, "Holy cow, they've never come this far south before." So I told my husband, I was like, "I'm sorry, I have to go fangirl for a minute. I'll be back." And I ripped the sweater off my mannequin and I ran over there and I was like, "Max, I made this for you." And I was like, "That sounds weird." And then I just word vomited, and he was like, "Oh, okay." He's very nice, very Canadian. He's way taller in real life than I thought he would be. And then I went back to my booth and I was like, "He's never gonna come by my booth. He's not gonna say hi to me again." I was awful. That was embarrassing. He didn't, but it's fine. It's totally fine. It was
That's
great.
awesome.
I'm just gonna be,
And
like morbidly afraid of how Maxim Sear thinks that I'm just a crazy person who ran over to him with a sweater. It's awesome.
that's really funny. Isn't he the one that just had some drama last year?
I think his
Senator?
boyfriend did
Oh,
Dells.
okay. Okay. I know that there was
I
some
don't know.
Canadian
I kind
knitting
of
drama. I
honestly,
don't
I
quite
avoid
remember.
most of it. I don't know. I don't
Well,
care. I just like to knit, so
yeah.
I
No,
avoid
that's
most
when
of it.
I get it. But that's when I first came across him because I had never heard of him before. And then there was the whole thing. So that's all.
Yeah, I found his patterns oh gosh, I want to say like 4 or 5 years ago. It was right after we moved to San Antonio. And again, I'm a color work fanatic and I love to knit sweaters, which was ironic living in South Texas, but I did it anyway. And he doesn't really do them anymore. I'm to be honest, like his new patterns I feel are not as involved as they used to be. But his first patterns that he came out with, the sweaters, I love them, and that sweater is forever like my all-time favorite. I call it my monkey arm sweater because again, it is like double or triple XL. It's huge. And the sleeves, because the yoke is so deep that the sleeves hang off my hands by like a good 2 to 3 inches. So I just like, and I like that sweater and I have had words. So I got the whole body done, and then I finished one sleeve, and I got to like 3/4 down the second sleeve, and I ran out of yarn. But I was like, it's not enough to justify breaking into a new skein, right? So I completely frogged the cuff of my other sleeve, and then I reknit it in one of the colors from the yoke. And then I got a little bit further in the sleeve, and I was like, oh my God. So then I took the hem, and again, the sweater is enormous. So it's like over 300 stitches around. So I ripped out the hem of the sweater and I reknit it because, we all love knitting one by one ribbing so much. And then I finally had enough to finish the sleeve, but
Wow.
it's fine.
That's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears for a single sweater.
Yeah.
It was.
And that's why I don't do them. Because
See,
I don't have the attention. I don't have the attention span for it.
It's funny. A lot of people say that, like, oh, I don't have the patience for knitting or something. And I'm like, yeah, you do. You do.
Yeah.
You just don't know it yet. If you have the patience to sit there and like play a video game and whatever, or you have the patience to do a lot of other things in life, you have the patience to knit something.
See, I was just about to say that. It's like if you have a phone app game on your phone that you play regularly, you have enough time to knit socks. You can. If you don't want to knit socks, that's fine, but you have the time, you have the dexterity, you can do it. It is all in your hands.
Well, and I had a friend earlier, she earlier this year, like I don't know, what was it, July or September, she was making fun of me because I like color work I just get so anxious to see the pattern that I just blow through it. And then when I get to the rest of the item, I'm kind of just bored, right? But she was like, oh, you knit color work so fast. I bet you could knit a hat in a day. And I was like, bet. So, and then my husband had to join in. He has a giant head. And he was like, okay, fine. You have to knit a hat in a day, but it has to be my size. And I was like, all right, let's go. So I did. I was actually able to knit an entire hat in 24 hours. I don't know how.
Yeah, I love to knit hats, and I often can make them in a day when I have. But see, the problem is that I have my own business. I do this with Anne. I design knitting patterns. I homeschool my kids. So like by the time my day is done, I don't want to knit. I don't even want to like look at yarn some days because I'm like, just so tired. I just don't want anybody to talk to me, and I just want to sit here and stare. But then sometimes I get out to see, like, I've never made a sweater. This is supposed to be a vest. It is this big right now. So it just started, but we'll see. I really want to get through it. We'll see if I actually do it.
I believe in you. You can do it.
Thank you.
You can do it.
It makes me laugh, you saying that it's like how you can't do the boring parts. So a lot of hats that I make will be like mostly ribbing, but then there'll be an intarsia section on the side. And I find that keeps my attention through doing all of the plain bit, because I'll be like, okay, I can go fast when I'm going around. You don't have to pay attention with ribbing, but it breaks up the ribbing monotony to be like, okay, this section between the stitch markers, there's a pattern. Do the pattern. Okay, boring bit again. Let's go.
Mm-hmm.
So you can kind of do that ribbon back and forth.
And I think
too, like, I haven't done intarsia yet. That's on my list of things to learn. Every year I try to learn a new like knitting technique. Like one year it was brioche. I wanted to learn brioche, so I did. And then another one I want to try is this. I did not get this. Somebody else made this and gave it to me. But the assigned pooling. Have you done this yet?
Yeah, no, I haven't.
Oh my gosh, I think it's the coolest thing. And I got to meet Dawn Barker too. Very nice lady. small world, I found out that her and her husband actually met here in Denver. They used to work at a hospital, and I was like, my son was born at that hospital and stuff.
Cool.
But anyway, so yeah, it's really cool because the yarn is what dictates the design, right? So even if you use the same yarn, no two are going to be identical, which I think is really kind of fun. So I actually do dye a number of assigned pooling colorways, and this is one of them with a little orange bits. And then I don't know what else I have in this box. I like threw it together for the trunk show, and then time zones are a thing apparently. So
It's okay. As I said, I did not say Eastern. I said it once and then I never said it again. And so that was my bad.
and I also am like severely ADHD. So I have a tendency to start and then I just kind of guess what the rest is going to say and I don't actually read it. So there's also that. But yeah, so this is this is an assigned pooling where it's all speckled with fun colors, and then there's a little piece of black that would be the little baubles or whatever. And then I also do skeins that are half one color. Oh, okay, good. Thank you. This one is called Tender Lumplings. I don't know if you're a fan of The Nightmare Before Christmas. But this was a Halloween colorway from last year. At the beginning of the song is Tender Lumplings Everywhere. So that's what this one is. And it's I don't know if you've seen the black light. So it's fluorescent dye. So under a black light, these speckles glow, which is super fun.
Oh, cool.
And then this one is half of this like dark blue, and then the other half is speckled with red and orange. And this is another black light reactive yarn. And this one is called It's Leviosa. So
okay. So my kids have been going around saying that like all the stinking time because we just finished reading all the Harry Potters and now we've read all we watched all the movies and like they just go around saying the stuff and I'm like, oh, please stop.
So all my half and half skeins are named after, well, except for one, they're all Harry Potters. But so this one is It's Leviosa. I have one that is like a dark gray as the solid, and the speckles is greens and blues, and it's Avada Kedavra. And then I've got Petrificus and Expelliarmus.
I have to go look at your Harry Potter ones.
My parents were like super religious, and I was not allowed to read Harry Potter growing up. And I secretly watched the movies on my TV in like middle school, high school. So my husband, on the other hand, big fan, read all the books multiple times. And now that my oldest, once he got old enough to read the books, he and I started doing the audiobooks together whenever we were in the car. And I went to my husband, I was like, how come this scene wasn't in the movies? This is amazing. How is this? And he's like, because, Janessa, CGI costs money. And I was like, well, they suck because it should be.
So I went to a private Christian school, and so when the books came out, I was older than you, but also they were very, very naughty, so I didn't read them until I was in college, and I loved them. And I'm still a Christian, and we go to a Christian co-op, but I've taken the approach of it with my kids, like it's fantasy, it's fun, I mean, you're not going to get a Hogwarts letter no matter how much you tell me you want one. Like, it's not going to happen. We're just going to have fun. Like, you know what I mean? And so that's.
And my mom was like, oh, we saw a VHS in Sunday school that said it was bad. And I was like, okay. I was like, okay, this was my thing in high school. I said, how come you say we can't watch or read Harry Potter because it has wizards and witches in it, but yet we own all the Lord of the Rings trilogy? I'm just saying, what's the difference? Gonna throw that out
that there. Is what we call a double standard. And wasn't the dude who Tolkien, wasn't he a Christian or wasn't he a something?
Yes, and that was her excuse, was that Tolkien was Christian author, so it counted. I was like, how do you know J.K. Rowling isn't a Christian? Did you ask her? But I was just an insolent child, so it's fine.
That's so funny though. No, both of my kids were Harry Potter
characters. I'm an only child, so I have to be like the worst of everything. I have a friend
That's
that I grew
funny.
up with, and she's like a year and a half younger than me, but she basically just was at our house all the time. She lived here. She still to this day calls my mother mom, and I call her my sister. So I didn't have siblings, so I just adopted people as siblings. And I always joke that she is my parents' favorite because she was the good one. Because I was
That's
always like,
funny.
hey, let's go do this. And she goes, oh, but won't we get in trouble? And I'm like, I don't know. I've never done it before. And then I would talk her into it and we get in trouble. So that was pretty much just me as a kid.
That's funny.
But
So
yeah, apparently you're not supposed to use nail polish as impromptu sidewalk chalk.
no,
Pro
that
tip.
won't work.
I mean, it does, but it doesn't wash off for like 5 years. Especially if you're stupid enough to write your name and then mom catches you. That's also great.
Yeah, you've got to at least have like plausible deniability. Like, I didn't do that. I don't know who did, but I'm
Right,
pretty
but like, what
sure.
do kids do, right? What do kids do? And they're in like, fourth and fifth grade. They write their names. That's what like the first thing you do is you put your name on everything, like Jimmy was here or whatever. And I don't. So my aunt had gave me like a little case of all those little bonbons nail polishes. But I was a tomboy and I didn't paint my nails. I'm like, what am I gonna do with all this paint? This is dumb. So I was like, oh, I bet we could paint on the sidewalk. And she was like, I don't know, we might get in trouble. And I was like, and I talked her into it. And then next thing I know, I hear my mom like, what are you doing? And I was like, Nothing. I It's my name. I can't. She gave us like little Dixie cups of acetone and a toothbrush. Did absolutely nothing. It was there for a good 5 years before it finally washed away. So
So the moral of this story is I'm never let my kids talk to you.
hey, I'm great. All right. We have fun.
I'm sure you do, but we have a concrete driveway that my husband is very particular about. And if any nail polish were to go on it, you would hear it in Colorado because he would not
Probably.
be having it.
Probably. Apparently, my mom, I don't know, I haven't seen it, but in when we moved into this house, my parents have been here for 30 years. So when we moved into this house, someone had given me some like colored chapstick or something. You were talking about lipstick earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I put it on and then I kissed the wall in the basement and I went all the way around the entire basement. She said you could tell when you reapplied and then kept going. And they ended up just putting wainscoting on the walls to cover it up. She's like, if that ever comes down, I bet your little kisses are still there, like at the same height, just all the way across the whole house.
That's hilarious.
I have left my mark
So,
on this poor house.
But,
so
at the same time, I appreciate, even though it that you have like this sort of destructive element as a child, but also it's like, so when you grow up, you're like, I need to make something with this or I will break things. Like, okay, I'm making this now. It's like I'm
that's
gonna
what I was gonna say.
need to
She got the
focus this
colored,
and knit to make
yeah.
colors, not paint, the
Yeah,
sidewalk.
I've always been that kid. I think my mom was actually she brought it up the other day because now my youngest daughter she's like, oh, I want to make stuffies. And I was like, okay, well, we can learn. And she goes, oh, I remember going into your closet and in the corner finding a hoard of stuffed animal carcasses because you decided you would learn to sew and you decided you're making pillows because that's what you could make. And you didn't have stuffing for the pillows. So you took your least favorite stuffed animals and you ripped them open and you pulled all the stuffing out to stuff your pillows. And then you were trying to hide the carcasses from me. So you shoved them in the backest, furthest corner of your closet, hoping that I wouldn't find out. And I was like, oh, yeah, I forgot I did that too. So
So,
my
like I said, the
creativity
moral of
has
the
been quite
story,
destructive
yes,
throughout the years.
you've always been finding a way to make things and do things and color, and it's fantastic.
Resourcefulness. There you go. Can I put that on my resume? Resourcefulness.
Yeah.
Being able to make something from nothing. Finding a way. I don't know. But
That's too
yeah.
funny.
I was an only child and I'm pretty sure that I was an only child for a reason, because if there had been more of me, then my mom probably would have just imploded.
See, now I'm just even more fascinated about what, your notebooks full of pattern ideas are. Just like, this sort of energy. I'm all about it. I love it. I want to know what you got. And your
I can go
yarn.
grab it real quick if you want. I told
You
you
were
it's right there.
literally around the
So-
corner.
This is my enormous monkey arm sweater. If I can find the shoulders. But I absolutely love it. It's huge. So I also made it out of my my Rapture yarn, so it's got cashmere in it. It's my MCN, so it's 80% wool, 10 cashmere, 10 nylon. And I'm now somewhere where I can wear it, so I wear it all the time.
That's beautiful.
That's awesome.
Could you put the yoke a little closer to the camera? I can't quite see what the little blue thing. Are they flowers?
They're flowers, yeah.
So
And it's got a very punny name, which I appreciate. It's Once in Floral. So, but yeah, this is like my all-time favorite sweater ever.
That's awesome.
And then my notebook of ideas, my daughter was so kind as to decorate it for me. Talking about children doing destructive things. So, and then I've got, so I don't even know how many pages. I'm working on a dog sweater right now. I put a lot of like color work charts that I draw and how well you can see.
Wow.
Just all my notes for stuff. Like here's one I'm working on, a hat. So another color work pattern. This is all my notes. I actually published this pattern. This is my slip knit shawl. Or no, I lied. Slip knit's the name of the blanket that people like more than my shawl. It's called Half Light. It's a Half Light shawl. And I just a few notes. It's no big deal. But yeah, it's mostly just I'm actually currently knitting kippas or yarmulke. So I'm writing up a couple patterns for that. I had someone come to me and he was like, "Hey, could you make a yarmulke for me?" Because he was looking at my displays at a show. And I was like, "Well, yeah, why not? It's just like the top of a beanie, right? It shouldn't be that difficult." And I found out there's really not that many patterns out there for knit kippas. So I started designing a few kippas, which would be awesome for mini skeins or whatever. They really do not take much yarn at all.
Mm-hmm.
This was a sweater my pastor's wife was wearing, and I was like, let me take pictures of it. I want to see. She was like, did you make this for me? I bought this from TJ Maxx and it's so itchy, but I love the way it looks. So I took photos and I tried to recreate the color work, and that's on my to-do list of things to try and create. I don't even know. There's stuff in here.
the yarmulke thing, I think there must be like a secret trove of Jewish knitting patterns, because I was talking to a guy. He's like, "Oh, I have this Israeli beanie pattern." He's like, "Oh, that'd be, really great in a kippa." I'd be like, "Oh, I've never seen a knit one before." And he's like, "Oh yeah, growing up the hand knit ones were all I wore." I'm like, I guess I just don't know. I'm just not
Yeah,
exposed.
but if you go on to Ravelry, there's not even like a full page of them. So there's a lot of like random ones I found online, but most of them it was like learn how to knit by knitting a kippa, and I was like, I already know how to knit. I just need the pattern.
Right.
And then in our church group in San Antonio, one of the ladies actually she had been a nun. And she spent I want to say she lived 6 years in Israel. So I made one and I brought it to her. She's like, "Oh, this is great for a kid." I was like, "I didn't make it big enough." She was like, "Well, no, this would be good for a child's kippa." And I was like, "Okay, well, how much bigger does it need to be for a man's kippa? Because this guy needs an adult size kippa." So she was awesome. She was telling me like, how big it needs to be and where they fit on the head. So that was cool. And I learned a lot about kippas that I didn't know. So yeah, I have this one. It looks better from a distance, but it's like cats, kind of.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm gonna do with it. I just drew it. So yeah, I've got like ideas for bigger pieces. Like this is a hooded jacket, which I think would be fantastic if I could figure out how to make it into an actual pattern. Right? Like the idea, that's the problem is it's like in here, I get it, but how to actually make it knitting, that's a challenge. So we'll see. It's on there somewhere whenever I get to it. But yeah, just like sweater ideas. I just do little doodles and then kind of give some ideas on what features I wanted to have. Like this one is like a wide scoop neck sweater, raglan, and then whatever. And then I get inspiration from random stuff too. There was one chart that I made in here that I got the idea from a stained glass window I saw in Outlander, I think. One of the stained glass windows. I was like, that would be a really cool geometric pattern. So I wrote it down.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what's most of in here. Or, I also have that problem where I go to IKEA or Target or something, and you see like these big, beautiful blankets, and it's like $25. You can tell it's just knit. It's just like cotton yarn. And it's only $25. And I was like, oh, I could make that myself for 5 times that amount. That's totally cool.
Yeah.
Probably
more than
$25
5 times that amount. So I mean,
Probably.
really, once you get enough yarn to make a big blanket, like, come on.
Right? Oh my gosh. So,
Anne wanted to know about your notebook because Anne loves notebooks, and she has like some with like all of the PIK notes from the beginning of our show and so.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so
random knitting notebook of ideas. So like I am there.
This is my first. I write down all of my recipes whenever I die, whether they work out or not. I write everything down so I can go back. And this has been so like warped with color and like my favorite. There's some spots in here. There's so much. There's dye all over it and like big rings stain from setting stuff down in it. And like this one is especially gross. It's not mold, I promise, it's dye. So it's been so beat up. And then my husband for what was it, Mother's Day this year, got me this amazing notebook by Karst, I believe is what it's called. Yeah, Karst. And the paper is made out of stone.
Oh.
So it's waterproof. Wow. So I can drip water on it and it doesn't affect the paper at all. It's amazing. It's a little heavier. And the paper feels weird, like it's oddly smooth. But I will say I have definitely dripped water on it, and it has how like when paper gets wet, it warps and bubbles, and this hasn't done that at all. So I think it's pretty awesome. The whole cover is covered in dye.
Right, the cover isn't made of stone.
No, but the paper itself, I mean, I'm already like halfway through it, and you can't even tell that it's ever been wet, which is pretty neat. So
what a wonderful modern world we live in.
Kudos to him for finding it. Well, like here you can tell I put ink or whatever, it had dye and it was wet, and the paper is fine.
Right.
So best thing ever. And you can tell too, like which one has been wet.
Right.
So yeah, I think from now on all my dye books are gonna be stone paper. Brilliant.
Oh, that's really cool. Very cool.
So, do you have any other yarn and goodies to show us?
Yeah, I have a couple. Let's see what else. So I showed you most. I've got now that I live up north and people actually want it, I'm dyeing it again. The chunky
Nice.
glee is what it's called. So it's 100% wool. I will say one thing I love about my yarn supplier is they're a family-owned company in the UK, and all of their wool is 19.5 micron or better. So everything is like insanely soft and luxurious, and I can't get enough of it. I won't dye and sell yarn that I don't like to knit with. So if I decide I want to play with something, I'll get, one bag and play with it. And if I hate it, then I'll just never dye it again. But this is awesome if you like packs, thick, quick projects for Christmas or whatever. There's 109 yards, I believe, per 100 gram skein. And I will say that usually when I weigh these, they tend to be a little bit more than 100. I think the most I had a skein that was 107 grams. So another fun thing about this supplier is they're not skimpy.
The definition looks like it'll be good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah. And then another one that I really love, I started dyeing is the Surrey alpaca. So I don't know how well you can see it. It's technically a lace weight. And if I can get this here to show, I just like the same color as my dyed fingers, but it's nice and fluffy. So I started dyeing this and I stopped dyeing mohair because a lot of people are allergic to mohair. But I think that the alpaca is softer for one, it's cheaper, and it's not as like hairy. You know what I mean? Have you knit with the mohair and it's just like there's little hairs that get everywhere and it's like in your mouth and you feel like you're eating your knitting? This tends to be a little less flyaways. But I absolutely love this. I actually knit a shawl. It was a test knit I did earlier this year, and I held it double next to a DK weight, and it pretty much matched. It was kind of cool. There's enough fluff in it that held double. It was almost a DK weight, somewhere between probably a sport and a DK. But it's just luxurious and awesome. But they're 50 gram skeins, and they are $26 a skein. Most of my yarn is 25, except for the cashmere. And but yeah, all of my stock yarn is $25 a skein. I know that a lot of people have told me that, oh, well, you could sell them for more. I was like, well, I could, but I'm not going to because I'm not doing it because I'm trying to make oodles and oodles of profit. I just like to dye yarn, and I like to see what people make with the yarn that I dye, and I don't care. So, but yeah, I absolutely love. I just like what I do. That's all. And then, well, I could show you the difference between the cashmere, but you can't really see it. It's more of a feel.
Right.
But honestly, sometimes I have a hard time telling the difference between my MCN and my sock yarn. They're very similar in feel. Just one smells slightly more like goat than the other. You have no idea how many people will do that. They'll come up to my booth and be like, we do this, we gotta touch it, we gotta smell it, we gotta rub it all over. I was like, I don't care, go for it, enjoy.
Yeah,
that's what it's
I
for.
try not to do that. I mean, although I live in New York, and the first show I went to after COVID, it was like so, like they weren't even letting you touch the yarn unless you were like buying it, and I was like,
how do I know
how
what
am I
it feels
supposed
like
to
if
buy
I can't
yarn
touch
if
it?
I'm not going to touch it? Like, not everybody was, but some of the people were like really over the top, and I'm like, yeah, no.
No, I am totally a yarn feeler. It's like I would want to put it on my face, but I'm like, okay, resist.
Yeah, I try not to do those things in
You
public
know,
generally, but not always. I
know.
don't know.
I will say I think it would be probably slightly more socially acceptable if you did it on your neck, because a lot of people are like, close to skin. You have very sensitive skin here. You know, it's a little less weird than touching it on your face. Um, I have a lot of people do that, but or like they'll put it on their inner wrist to see how
Mhm.
soft it is. That works.
Yeah, that's a
Also,
good
you
idea.
know, if you're wearing a lot of makeup, you probably don't want to do this. Just saying.
Yeah, no, nobody wants it on their yarn. And if you don't buy that one, then it is a little weird. I mean, just saying. I like the wrist idea. That's a good spot to rub, you know, sensitive.
Yeah, it's a little more subtle, you know, so you don't get caught being weird with yarn. It's
Yeah.
fine. But I'm a weirdo, and I'm totally down with any weirdos that come into my booth. Go for it. I don't care. I'm not picky. If you enjoy it, all the merrier. I'm all for it.
Yeah, awesome. Are there any shows that you're doing? Or are you done with those for the year?
So I have one more coming up. It's a 1 day trunk show, a local shop here in Denver. Well, I guess technically it's in Littleton. They're newer. I think they've only been around for a year, maybe two.
Hmm.
Elevation Yarn Company. I have it on my website. There's a link, or there's a page on my website called events, and there's a link to their website from there. And yeah, they're new. I went over there and checked them out. They're super nice, small shop, but it'll be fun.
Cool.
So that's my
Sounds
last
like
show
a lot of fun.
here. Next year, it's interesting because all the shows that I did before were in Texas, and now that I no longer live in Texas, it's sort of out of the way to go all the way down there for a small show.
Right.
So I know for sure I'm doing DFW again, in Dallas because that the trip was worth it for me. And trying to see if I can't get into some shows here in Colorado. I got invited to sign up as a vendor for, I believe it's called, is it Interweave? It's in Loveland. And they sent me the vendor application and I got all excited and I started filling it out until it got to the booth fee part. And I was like, never mind. I have never seen a booth fee that much in my life. So
Interesting.
I can't, like, I love it. I would love to. I can't afford $1,300
Oh my gosh, no.
for a booth, for a
That's
10
a
by
lot
10
of
booth.
money.
That
That's a
was an
lot of money.
insane, that, yeah, right? I saw that and I took a picture. I sent it to my husband and I was like, I think I just threw up in my mouth a little bit. It's too much.
Yeah. So, what's your website so people can find you?
EuphoriaKnits.com.
Awesome. Awesome.
And
And
then on
any
Instagram, it's Euphoria_knits. I gotta make sure it was Euphoria Knits, but I got hacked last year. And you know, Meta was super helpful. Is that what they call it now, right? Super helpful about getting my account back. So it's just gone
yeah,
forever. I started over.
yeah, that's unfortunate.
No, oh no, I was just going to say that on your website, you don't only have yarn, but you have different supplies and wool washes and needles and all sorts of lovely stuff.
Oh, yes. So I am starting to kind of bring in some notions now too. So I do have scissors. They're called it's by a brand called Cotton Clara. And I love them because they have a nice weight to them and they're very nice and sharp. And then I started carrying some lantern moon needles. I don't know if you've had the
Oh,
pleasure of knitting with them yet, but they are French kiss. They're wonderful. So that, and then soak. I also carry soak.
cool.
I don't know if you know about Soak, but they're a wool wash company based out of Canada, and I absolutely love their stuff. My husband plays hockey, and they actually get like the hockey stink out of stuff. So if it works on his hockey dank stuff, then it'll do wonders for your knitting.
Very
And
cool.
it's wonderful because you don't have to rinse it. You just soak it for 15 minutes, wring it out when well, you don't wring it out, but do the towel thing. And then lay it out to dry. And then I just got in some um the chibi, is it clover chibi um darning needles. And then what else do I carry? I feel like I'm missing something. Oh, and I make stickers that can be occasionally slightly inappropriate, but fun.
That sounds like a good time. People can find you at euphoriaknits.com, and Anne has our giveaway.
And again, this is Chicken Lady Fiberarts. This is the wheat colorway. It's lovely. It's very delicate. And you can find it at chickenladyfiberarts.com. And again, the promo code, the new one for November is Preemie20 PIK. And that is Preemie, PREEMIE.
Yes. Janessa, thanks for joining us today. Thanks for,
Thank you for
we were
having
bummed
me.
you couldn't come on Saturday, but I think this was better in the long run. So,
This
we
was
actually got to talk.
A little more. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
well, yeah, anytime.
us.
This was fun.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks. We will see you guys next week. All right. Bye.